Welcome to the Book of Leaves podcast. My name is Cara and I am the host of this show. Now, thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode. If you are a new listener, you are very welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And if you are a regular listener, thank you so much for coming back. I hope you're all keeping well. I have followed Lynn's journey with the Upcycle Movement for so long now. What she does is just amazing and I can't wait for you guys to hear this interview. Thank you so much for anyone who shared and got in touch about last week's or 2 weeks ago's episode with Neve and Joe from Bamboo. A lot of people got in touch to say they've made the switch to a bamboo toothbrush already and they've no regrets and all this kind of thing, which is great to hear. So thank you all so much, and if you haven't listened to it already, go back and check that episode out after you listen to this one. And as always, share this podcast, recommend it to a friend, rate it and review it if you're on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That would be really helpful. And if you would like to support this podcast, if you're here for maybe just 1 or 2 episodes, you can buy me a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/book of leaves. Or if you're in a position that you can contribute regularly, I do have a Patreon account, patreon.com/book of leaves. If you can sign up for 1 or 2 or €10 a month, whatever you can do, and that will all go towards the podcast hosting fees, and then maybe some coffees on top of that if there is any left over. Thank you so much to my regular patrons already. I appreciate you guys so much, and for anyone else who's contributed to the podcast and shared it, of course. Now, this, as I said, I've followed Lynn in the Upcycle Movement for so long. She's an absolute superstar. If there was millions of Lynns in the world, it would be such a better place. She is an amazing woman, and after the interview she sent me one of her Neo purses, coin pouches, as a thank you, and she's just so kind and I love it so much, because I told her when we were chatting, I was like, oh, I've got a purse that's falling to bits and when it completely falls apart I'm going to buy one of yours, and she was like, just send me your address, I'll send you one anyway. So thank you so much, Lynn. I love it so much, and I keep showing it to people being like, have you seen my purse? There's not a whole lot in it, but it's made of an upcycled wetsuit. So I just love it so much, and she's just so kind, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed chatting to Lynn. And she also listens to the episodes regularly, so thank you, Lynn. And yeah, basically what Lynn is all about is upcycling and waste kind of management, finding new things to do with our waste, and we'll chat all about it. The main kind of thing that she does deal with, if anyone hasn't heard of the Upcycle Movement before, is in upcycling wetsuits. This fits very well into Plastic Free July as well, looking at things in a new light and finding new purposes for old things. So we'll talk all about that, but just make sure that you stick around for the show notes, because there's a few things that I want to touch on, and I will chat to you guys then. But in the meantime, here is Lynn, and I hope you guys enjoy. I'll talk to you in a bit. Now, thank you so much, Lynn, for taking some time to come inside on this really sunny day to talk to me on Book of Leaves. I'm so happy to finally have you here.
Oh, it's so lovely. I'm really honoured, genuinely, to be on this as well. So thank you for asking me.
You're, I think, based in Wexford, are you? Or have you got any links to Wexford?
Well, no, I'm from Dublin. I'm from Killiney in Dublin, and I've been living down in Wexford for the last 2 or 3 years. So no links really, except that I'm just living down here now and I love it. I actually love it. The beaches are beautiful down here. It's just nice to feel a little bit more connected to nature as well than in Dublin.
Yeah. But come here, we'll get into things. I don't want to keep you from getting your vitamin D for too long. You are behind the Upcycle Movement, which is an amazing business, and it's so much more than just selling upcycled things. There's so much kind of education and inspiration involved on all your platforms and your website and everything as well. But I guess for anyone who might not know the difference, can you start off by explaining what the difference is between recycling and upcycling?
And this is probably one of the questions I get most commonly asked as well. And it's really commonly confused because while the two of them are keeping things out of landfill essentially, which is brilliant, the main difference is the process and how they do that. So to recycle something, like if you think about plastic bottles that are recycled into a t-shirt, for instance, which we see an awful lot of at the moment, that's a huge process that those bottles go through, from getting from a plastic bottle into a fiber, it's, you know, there's different resources that go into it. So energy, heat, chemicals sometimes, in order to break it down, and then reform it into something else. And a lot of the time recycled things have maybe other fibers added into them to give them strength, because recycling is also commonly known as downcycling for that reason. The process often makes it of a lesser quality eventually. Whereas upcycling, on the other hand, the up means, you know, it's adding value, it's increasing value, and it's increasing the lifespan as well. So that's where the up in upcycling comes from. And it's a bit of a kinder, in my opinion, a kinder process, as in you're just reimagining, reinventing something, and prolonging its life in that way. And so the process is basically the main difference.
No, it makes total sense. One of them, it takes a lot of energy to turn into something, and it's of lesser value, whereas upcycling, there's less energy obviously and waste kind of then involved with the new product, for sure. And what then, were you always aware of waste? Was it always something kind of concerned you, or was there a certain moment that in your life that you became more eco-conscious?
Yes and no. I think I definitely have had an upbringing that we've always been brought up to, you know, respect what we have and repair what we have, appreciate and value what we have. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to that. And also a huge part of it would be, my dad is really inventive. He's really, you know, he's always tipping away in his shed, and he's always making something out of what he had. And I definitely think that the way I think is a lot down to that. But the main thing, or like I suppose a little bit of a light bulb moment, if you want to call it that, was when my brother gave me a Christmas present of a bag in 2005, it would have been, and that it was made from a tent from the tsunami relief. It was like a tsunami relief rescue tent from the tsunami that hit Asia in 2004. And it says on it, and I actually have it here for the people who are watching on YouTube, it says on it, "We've moved on, help us carry our tents." It's a tsunami relief bag. So I still have it. And it's a cool little bag. But I suppose it was kind of the pivotal moment where I thought much broader, you know, because that bag, it was made by, I suppose, widows who had lost everything at the time. They had lost family members, maybe their work that they were doing, you know, their homes, all these things. And when they were ready to move on to the next stage of their life, they saw an opportunity to turn these tents that they had been staying in into something to help them get money to move on. And I guess it kind of just made me think on such a bigger level how much of an impact that has environmentally, socially and economically, that it just makes sense to use what we have, you know. So that was definitely a huge changing point for me in terms of looking at everything as a resource for something new. I think as well, maybe that comes back to what I'm doing now. I'd love people to receive the products that I have and think, you know, sort of have a moment where they're like, wow, you know, that kind of means so much more than it's just fulfilling a purpose or whatever.
Yeah, it makes them think a little bit. It's not just a generic bag that hundreds of other people can get in a shop. Like it's usually is a more unique item as well.
Yeah.
They're usually one of a kind, which is amazing.
But I do think, but I do think that was a sort of a moment that I kind of thought about it more so. And I've always had an entrepreneurial streak as well. I've always been, you know, even as a kid, I remember, and I was thinking about this. As a kid, me and my friend across the road, Jane, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying it, we used to have little, you know, sales outside the house of whatever we had, or we'd make things and stuff and have a sale outside the gate, like a lot of kids probably do, and always donated it to the DSPCA, or there was always a reason for it rather than, you know, just to make profit or something. Or we'd make fudge and go around door to door. I remember we had, the road I grew up on was called Glenalua Road. So we had a magazine one time called Glenalua Gossip, and it was all the news stories of, you know, what was going on with the neighbours and someone's cat is lost or whatever. And so like, I think that's always been in me too. I'm always looking out for opportunities. Or
you're like an entrepreneur almost. That's brilliant.
100%, yeah. And I love it. And I love the whole vibe of the entrepreneurial world as well. And I think once you sort of step into it and start to look for opportunities, and in my case it's waste opportunities, like trying to identify waste streams, matching them with somebody who can do something about it, or figuring out a solution myself or something. And I love that. I really do.
So what's your background in? Did you then study business, or what kind of path were you on before Upcycle
Yeah,
Movement?
I did interior design in college actually. So when I left school, I always wanted to do something creative for sure. And I love interiors and anything to do with interior design. So I did that in college and then went into the property market actually after that, where I was a letting negotiator for about 6 years in Dublin. And during my time there, I was frustrated at all the properties that weren't shifting because just they maybe didn't look very nice, and there was a few simple things that you could do to make them prettier basically. So I used to stage properties for that, and long story short, I ended up kind of leaving or doing the letting negotiator as part-time and bringing in my own thing and restyling and kind of doing up properties for the sales and rental market for the company I worked with. And that was great because everyone was a winner, because I got to do my creative stuff and the properties were actually shifting a bit faster as well. And then from that, to be honest, I kind of was a little bit frustrated in how much stuff could be deemed invaluable. And I would always be like, oh, because the landlords, they might say, oh, we'll get rid of that sofa because there's this wrong with it. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, we could do something with that. We can fix it. We can repair it. We can, recover it. And I'd go off to YouTube and I'd learn, how do I reupholster this? So that kind of was again, another kind of point in this direction as well, where I was then discovering lots of other people who were doing things and how to do things and how to mend and repair and upcycle. And that's when the term upcycle kind of came into my world as well, where I hadn't heard of it before, I suppose. And I was thinking, right, there's so many people doing all these amazing things and they're doing them out of such good and to try and save things from going to landfill, that there really should be a platform to promote everybody who's doing these things and try and encourage more of it and inspire. Because I'm a firm believer that inspiring somebody is so contagious. You inspire somebody and then they're inspired to do something that goes on. So that's why it's called the Upcycle Movement, is because there was this movement going on and I wanted to create a platform, which is what I did. It first came out in 2012 as the upcyclemovement.com, where I was kind of finding people who I was really interested in around the world who were doing amazing things, all upcycling different materials and all sorts of things, like anything, and trying to just share that. So that's how it started.
So it was more like a blog, kind of articles at the start.
It was, yeah. Now I've gone through an awful lot of phases. It's continually changing. But the mission and the reason why I started is always the same. It's in order to inspire change, my mindset as to what waste is. It's not waste, it's resource, So at that time, I, with my friend Gwen, we had the big upcycle back in, I think it was 2013. But that was basically, we had makers and designers and different people who were upcycling in Ireland get together, and we had a fair kind of thing, and it's definitely gone through an awful lot of phases. But I always wanted to create a product as well, and I think coming back to that bag again, it was a reason I wanted people to have something and be like, oh yeah, you can actually, this is valuable, and it means so much more. So
that's amazing. I really wanted the upcycle. The big upcycle sounds like a TV show. If anyone's out there listening, literally,
we actually had plans to do it this year again, but sure, look, these things happen.
So at what point then, because you primarily deal with wetsuits, so when did that happen? Or I'm curious to know, what was the inspiration there?
It's probably by 2014 then that I became aware of the problem of wetsuits. My ex-boyfriend at the time, I was living there in Cork, which is his business. So it's an adventure centre and it's all based around water. So they have wetsuits, and wetsuits are a main concern as to what to do with them at the end of their lifespan, basically, because they would be replacing them every year, at the end of every season. And you're not just talking about 10 wetsuits, you're talking about 100, maybe 200 wetsuits, an awful lot of wetsuits. So because I'm always dabbling in, what can you do with this? What can we do with this? He asked me, well, sure, is there anything you can do with wetsuits? So I kind of started playing around with them, but to be honest, they're a really hard material to work with. And I only had a domestic sewing machine that just was not up to scratch for those. And I was trying to sew them by hand, which is, So anyway, I kind of parked it. It was always there in the back of my mind and I parked it. And then fast forward a few years later, in 16, I think it was. I was living in Australia for a year, and the whole idea of it came up again because there's so many wetsuits in Australia. Everybody surfs. So I was asking them, what do they do with their wetsuits at the end of their life? Have they kind of figured out what to do? And I went around to a few different surf schools who told me that they send them either to charity shops if they're good enough to be reworn and resold, but generally they are sent to landfill. And when I was in Australia, I was working as a waste educator for a couple of the councils there as well. So I was really familiar with the different recycling centres, the processes, what they take, what they don't take. So yeah, and it kind of like reinforced the fact that it actually is an issue, and I've done an awful lot of research on it since. There are people who are, shredding them up, turning them into different things and stuff, but I just felt there's such a missed connection there because it's such a great material. It's so protective. It's really well made for its purpose, even though unfortunately it's not made from great materials, but it is really well made. It's it's got so many brilliant properties and can last a really, really long time. So I thought that, well, to shred it up is a bit, maybe eventually shred it up when it literally cannot have any more. But yeah, so I wanted to sort of bridge that gap and turn it into products, and that's kind of how it all came about. I kind of was just like, right, that is definitely a problem. I'm going to focus on that. I heard somebody say once, we're also keen at the moment, especially we're also keen to try and fix the world's problems, and one person, it's really hard to fix the world problem, but we can all take on one challenge and at least give it a go. So I kind of started focusing on wetsuits.
Jesus, fair play to you. It sounds, it's one of those things that you never think of going to landfill. I have never owned a wetsuit in my life, even though I grew up in Wexford. We just went swimming in our togs. Yeah, that was it. But yeah, so going to those water centres, I've been to a couple and they give you a wetsuit. I never really thought about it. But it is really nice material, like to touch, and it's soft and stretchy. So where did you find then the sewing machine to be able to work with them if they were a bit tricky?
I had to kind of invest in a proper industrial sewing machine, and even the guy who I went into, I was like, right, I'm going to be sewing wetsuits. What machine do I get? And we had to do a few trials on the ones he had as well, because he wasn't actually too sure, because it's bouncy as well. You need you need a walking foot and different things. So anyway, I just kind of let him guide me on that, and it's been brilliant. I have one, and so far, touch wood, it's kind of done the job for all the wetsuits, because they're all different thicknesses as well. So
yeah, I never thought about that actually. And to this date, are you the only person who makes them? Everything that is upcycled with wetsuits, is that all you?
Yeah, mainly, yeah. Last year I did do a little bit of work with the Rediscovery Centre in Ballymun, who are amazing there, and it's a social enterprise. I'm sure you probably know them.
Yeah, I've been out a few times. It's such an amazing centre. It's so good.
I know. But yeah, I went in, and Carrie Ann Moran, who was working there at the time, she was head of fashion then. There was some ladies there who were working and basically helping me make some of the products and things, and then they would sell them in the Rediscovery Centre as well. So that was brilliant, although that hasn't actually really been happening at the minute. It's just me, but it is something, like, I obviously, of course, I want to expand, and a whole part of what I do is I really want to train others and to do what I'm doing, and to try and get people thinking a bit more creatively as well, and come up with their own ideas and solutions and things like that. And that is definitely a vision for the future. But yeah, at the moment it is just myself and my sewing machine.
Oh my god, fair play to you, because the amount of products that you make, and you've recently started, of course, making the ear savers for people's masks and everything, which seems to be flying off. So
yeah, no, that's been great. I mean, the idea of an ear saver isn't my own. There's people who've been making them for a long time, but I just thought, wow, neoprene is ideal for that, because it's so light and it's soft and it's stretchy as well, it has a bit of give on it, so it's ideal for that. So I thought, there's one to put out.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess, where do you get your wetsuits from now? Do you kind of know the certain water centres that you go to every now and again, or do people like contact you with their personal wetsuits and send them to you? How do you get your materials?
Yeah, a bit of both. I'd say there's not a day that goes by that I don't get an email saying I have a wetsuit, or I am literally bombarded with them, and it's amazing. And last year I had the opportunity to have a little thing on RTE about it, and ever since then I've had literally a constant stream of wetsuits. I get them from an awful lot of like surf schools and adventure centres, places that do kayaking, sailing, dive schools, but all in Ireland. I have had people contact me from abroad as well, and as much as I'd love to take them, it kind of, for me and my values, it wouldn't make sense to to ship them over and stuff. So yeah, so like another part of what I'm hoping to do in the future and I'm working on is setting up pockets of what I do globally, and training other people to do what I do, so that because it's a global issue,
Yeah, it's more, you're not in it for the profit per se, it's making a difference. That's amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. I've never been driven by profit. I mean, obviously you need enough to keep the doors open, and so long as I can do what I'm doing, then I'm happy, I'm just, so basically I had to set up pockets of what I do and sort of try and expand it and make more impact that way, rather than try and do it all and become, I don't know, it's not really my style. So
yeah, so I guess if there's anyone listening maybe now, people in lockdown rethinking their lives or whatever, and if this sounds like something that might be up your street, maybe give Lynn a shout for some online classes or something. Who knows? So so then you have all these wetsuits, so I presume you have to go through some kind of cleaning process to get everything before you start cutting everything. So how does that happen? How do you turn a wetsuit? What's the process from wetsuit to sending it out to someone's house?
Well, first of all, when I receive wetsuits, I always ask for them to be clean. Dry is really important as well, and mold free, because a lot of people have contacted me and been like, oh, I've had this wetsuit in the attic for 10 years, but it's actually gone a bit nasty, so, and I can't take that obviously for health and safety reasons, and also it's very hard to turn it into something else when it's in that state. So it does have to be mold free, dry and clean. Then when I do get them, I do clean them again anyway, and I sterilize them using Milton. Then I let them air dry until I'm processing them. So they could be air drying for a few weeks, a few months even, just outside. So I like to have the air going through them. Then when I'm ready to process them, and then I also separate them into their different thicknesses. So some might be 3, 5, 8 mil. And I can make different things from the different wetsuits. So I kind of sort them a little bit. Whenever I usually just make to order as well. I don't generally make an awful lot of stock to have. And that's purely as well down to just being conscious of waste. I don't want to make something and nobody's going to buy it, and then I'm left with all these things, So I do make to order, except for if I have a market coming up or something like that.
Sure.
So yeah, it depends. If I get orders in and I know, okay, well, I need a 3 mil for that, I'm going to make the bag and I cut out the pattern. But usually what I do is open up the wetsuit entirely so you get the most of the material. And it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. I have all my patterns, I lay them out, and I try and make the most of it. So that might be cutting out the zip, and I have a bag of zips, and all the zips are different. Some are broken, I try to repair them, try to reuse them. So yeah, I'm just kind of conscious of trying to make the most value out of the material. And also, I mean, there's always bits of wetsuits that they may have gone beyond repair. So I have a bag of those bits as well. Because I have hopefully plans, and I'm working on a few things to do with those down the line as well. But yeah, just try and be as
you use everything. Fair play.
Yeah, so that's kind of how the process goes.
Amazing. And so what's the time frame for making each? I imagine like your small purses probably, I would assume, take the least, but I could be completely wrong. Your bags take the most. Like what's the kind of time frame for each project?
See, it's a really hard one to gauge, because it is in sort of stages as well. So if you were to combine like the washing and the drying and all that, it would take a long time. But to actually sew like the little purses and things, it doesn't take that long. Funny enough, some of the bracelets, because they're a bit more intricate, but even though they're smaller, they do take more time. Things like the yoga mat strap actually does take more time, because it needs to be a really clean cut, and just to sort of put it together, to assemble it is more time consuming. So it's funny, yeah, but they all take different amounts of time. But yeah, I really enjoy working with neoprene. it's lovely once you have the right machine to work with. It's a lovely material to work with because it doesn't fray, and it's really forgiving. I really enjoy the whole process, really.
That's good. Yeah, it makes work a whole lot easier for sure. And I didn't know that you make most of the products to order, which is amazing. Makes them more personal, and like we said earlier, like they're all unique. You have certain sections that what's it called? The spotlight for if something's really unique, if there's like a bit different, a colorful wetsuit or something, and they're always snapped up. But they look so cool.
And that's been going really well. And that's again because I suppose selling on the website, everything has to be a little bit more uniform as possible. I mean, wetsuits are predominantly black, so a lot of things are black, and I add, a colourful zip or whatever. But in order to sell online, I have to sort of think that way. But they are also unique, and that's why I wanted to add the spotlight bit in, because some of them are just beautiful. They have lovely detail or something, and it's that little bit extra special. And then the retailers I have would obviously, they'd have more colourful bits and pieces as well, because people can see them and touch them and feel them. But in order for me to be uploading different photos all the time to the website, it is so time consuming, so I had to streamline it a little bit.
And you've still kept that charity flair within you that you had as a child, because there's your Neo collection, there's a margin your profits all go to Seal Rescue Ireland, which of course we had an episode with. So what's your kind of relationship with them?
Yeah, well, so I'm living in Wexford, as you mentioned, and they're also based in Wexford. They're about 15-20 minutes away from me here. And for 2018, my New Year's resolution was to do something, to learn something I didn't know anything about, and to do something I'd never done before, in a voluntary capacity kind of thing. So I knew about Seal Rescue Ireland. I knew they were there, and I thought, that's perfect. I know nothing about seals. So in that January, I started volunteering. And I was literally cleaning out kennels and helping feed the seals and all that sort of stuff. And it was amazing. And it really opened my eyes to, well, first of all the work that Seal Rescue Ireland actually do on a day-to-day basis. But also beyond the seals, they're so environmentally aware, and they're doing so many different initiatives for, healthy seas and things like that. And in my time there, I would have seen seals coming in who were wrapped in plastic and fishing line and things like that, and it's heartbreaking. It's so awful, and especially, they have such big eyes, and they're looking up at you, and they're like,
they're so cute.
They're just, they draw you in, and they got me big time. But so I was volunteering there. I think it was like 4 hours a week for 3 or 4 months, during the time where I was also coming up with ideas and starting to design with the Neo collection, coming up with the Neo collection. And I didn't even have to think about it. I knew that I just wanted to donate something to them, because they're completely dependent on, well, I think they do get a little bit of support from the government, but only, I think it's 98% is funded by UNI or whatever. So everything they stand for was in line with everything I was trying to do. We're both connected with the ocean as well, with the border, and they're friends of mine now as well down there. And just without a doubt,
it just fit in perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. And even, down to the little things with my designs, for the tags that the little label comes on, it's connected with a fishing line that I have literally picked up off the beach, here in Wexford, that is washed up or whatever. But they're all just bits of fishing line, and they attach the labels on. It's kind of, it's quite interconnected, all right. It's kind of a little, nod to the fact that, hey, this is why we're doing this.
It's all linked. The seals are, gosh, and it's pupping season now, and the amount of photographs I'm seeing of poor things being entangled and everything, because of ghost nets and discarded fishing gear, and just plastic in the ocean is a huge issue. But also, they're just doing amazing work down there, so thank you for helping them.
No problem. And I know you had Mel on before. I've listened to your podcast before.
That was one of the best days. Most people before lockdown, I would invite people into town to record, but I was like, I'd love to come out there. I was so excited.
They're so cute. And actually, from last year, from 2019, I'm forgetting where we are these days. So for this year, from the sales of the Neo collection, we've been able to sponsor a kennel in the centre for the whole year, for the whole of 2020, which is amazing. And it was one of my goals as well to get there. You know, that was kind of a goal I really wanted to achieve, to be able to do that, because I think it's lovely to have the sign up over the kennel for people who have supported me and my business, which in turn supports them.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
well
with that.
done. Yeah, it's such an achievement, and like it's a visual thing as well. People, like, for
Yeah.
anyone who maybe hasn't been to Sea Rescue Ireland, when you go in, like they accept visitors all the time. Not sure about lockdown, but you know, it's such
Not
a
at the
good place to
moment,
go.
as far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully when this all lifts, because they will need the support, and you can go out and you can see the seals. But when the seals first arrive there, they're, if they don't need to be quarantined, they're put into like these individual kennels, and there's a sponsor above each one.
Yeah.
The Upcycle Movement has one of them,
Yeah.
and then hopefully people will see that and then look you up as well.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, but I do think, I mean, sometimes, you know, people will buy things and, you know, 10% goes to Sea Rescue Ireland or whatever, but it actually does, you know, and I want people to see that as well. So
Yeah, you're not sitting on it. No, it's fab.
yeah.
It's such good work that you're doing. It's amazing, Lynn, really. You've a lot of experience in regards to waste and upcycling and reimagining things. There's pretty much, I mean, is there anything that nearly can't be upcycled? I saw you're working on a bench at the moment with straps that were used to tie down something, which looks really cool. Like, what are some other examples, the strangest things you've seen upcycled,
Yeah.
or that you've done yourself, or that you've seen?
But no, I love this question. And actually, it's a part of the business that I didn't really foresee happening, but it's brilliant because bigger companies are coming to me going, we have this waste stream. What can you do? You know, is there anything you can do with it? And I think I really respect them for approaching. First of all, there are ways that we can solve these problems, redesign things, keep them out of landfill. But yeah, so those slings, basically they're from Murphy International. They are used so they're a construction engineering company, and they're used for lifting heavy things, basically. So they were asking me, is there anything I can do with it? So they gave me a whole bag of these slings, and I was like, But yeah, so I started upcycling them, and I was thinking about weaving them because they're really strong, and they wove and they're even stronger. And so anyway, that's what I did, and I started weaving this bench, and there's a few other items as well, and they're all going to be basically displayed in their foyer. So Siemens as well, they're installing wind turbines around Ireland, and the wind turbines are brought in and they're wrapped up in this protective tarp. So they asked me, is there anything that I can do with them? And they had an idea they had a conference, a wind energy conference coming up. They wanted to give something to all the delegates made from this tarp. So what we ended up doing was making bags, because when you go to any conference, you usually get a bag full of leaflets and all different types of things. They wanted to have the bag and have the bag as a statement itself. So there was nothing in the bag. It's just, you know, we're promoting that they're reusing and they're rethinking in this sort of way. So that's what those were for, and that was an amazing project as well. Really hard to work with tarp. So in terms of other things, when I was traveling in Peru years ago, there was I did the Inca Trail, and some of the Sherpas there, they were wearing shoes that were made from tires. You know, their soles were from tires, and that was one thing that's really stuck with me too. And actually, there's a company now. It's an American company. They're kind of based in Bali, but they make flip-flops out of tires. They're called Indosol. But one of the companies who inspires me most, I think, they're called Elvis and Cressy, and they're based in London. And they
Oh, I've never heard of them.
Oh, look them up. Like
I'm writing it down right now.
Yeah, so they're a couple called Elvis and Cressy. But they make luxury bags and accessories out of fire hoses from the London Fire Brigade, and they give 50% of their profits back to the fire brigade.
Wow.
They make those, and they've also just joined up with Burberry as well, because Burberry have an awful lot of leather waste. Actually, leather, I suppose there's bits and pieces, you know, there might be mosquito bites on the leather, on the skin, stretch marks, things like that, and those are things that people don't particularly want to see in their handbag or whatever. So they've been giving their waste to Elvis and Cressy, and they've been making different things from those parts, and they've come up with a really clever system. And actually, I have one of the things here.
Oh yeah, give us a go.
So this here, if you can see it,
the little patches.
Patches. So they come apart. I'll show you the back.
Oh my god, it's like a puzzle.
Like a puzzle piece, yeah. So these are all pieces from Burberry offcuts that might just have some sort of visual thing that, but otherwise it's perfectly good. So they're connected, and then the idea is, so they make rugs out of these, they make bags out of these, but the idea is once you're finished with those, you can actually disassemble it and use the material again for something else.
Oh my
And
God, that's genius.
it's absolutely genius, yeah. So they're a huge inspiration for me, and I went over to meet Cressy a few years ago when she was doing a workshop on that sort of, I suppose that's circular economy thinking.
So there's literally, God, you can upcycle nearly everything, because some things are just going to be destined to go to landfill, unfortunately. Like tires, obviously, when they go flat and everything, but they're such strong materials, they usually exist for a reason. And you can also, what you've done as well is you started to make art as well. If you can't find a purpose for it, you can always do a little, because when you got up, it reminded me, I could see your art piece behind you with the stripes.
Yes. Even what I'm doing, there's always going to be offcuts or little bits, as much as you try to, there's always bits that you can't use for whatever reason. And so that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm with a friend of mine he's a material scientist, and we're looking at ways of actually doing something with those little bits. That's hopefully something that will come in the future, but it's something I really want to crack. Because I think it's important. So yeah, I'm working on that at the minute.
Cool. A material scientist. There's a scientist for everything. There you go. I didn't even know that. That is amazing. Before we actually move on, I want to talk about now, when this comes out, it's going to be a couple of weeks, so I don't know how old they're going to be, but your birds. How are your baby birds doing?
Oh, I know. Well, they'll definitely have flown by the time this has come out. I'm dreading the day.
Yeah, because for anyone listening, Lynn on her Instagram shares this updates of a bird box that she has. What type of birds are they?
They're blue tits.
Are they blue tits? It's black and white. Yeah. I wasn't sure. They're so cute. So basically they've laid 4 or 5.
There's 5.
Passed away.
There was 6, yeah.
Yeah.
There's 5 now as of about 3 days ago. So.
And there's constant updates on your Instagram stories. I'm living and breathing for them every time. I'm like, and the little mouth's opening to catch food. So is this the first time you've had a bird box?
It's actually the 3rd time we've had the camera. So the 3rd year now we've had the camera in it. And it's fascinating. It really is so fascinating. Like, they're just so smart. And I love the little teamwork between the mum and the dad. When she was sitting on the eggs, he'd come in and feed her. And now they're just a little team. They're going in and out and in and out. And the birds are nearly as big as them now. It's amazing how fast they grow.
Yeah. But
yeah, I'd say they'll fly by the weekend. But no, it's great. It's a lovely thing to have. I really think it's such a lovely connection to nature as well.
It's so much closer than watching a David Attenborough documentary, because this is just attached to your gaff. This is in the garden, or if you know where it is.
You see them going from the tree into the box, and then it's lovely. Yeah.
Sorry. Anyone who's listening who's just like, can you get on with the upcycling, please? A little sidetrack there. We've covered so much. So unless there's anything else you want to touch on or talk about, my last question will be, what kind of general advice you have for people trying to be more eco-friendly, or when it comes to upcycling in particular, in regards to lockdown or any time?
I think my advice would just be to be really curious about what it is you buy and what it's made from and why you're buying it, and just think a little bit more about that. Like, during lockdown, I unfortunately sort of had to shop or close my shop, as in the online shop, and obviously retailers aren't open and things. So I kind of had to think a little bit outside the box, and I came up with the online challenge, that makes you think challenge.
Yeah.
I give talks and workshops in schools and different groups and things normally as well. And it's all focused on the idea of finding, seeking out the opportunity in waste, and seeking out maybe a business opportunity or a solution or whatever. And I think once you sort of have your eyes open to it, it's great, because you can almost train your brain to start thinking that way. And I really believe that that's what I've done myself. I purposely sort of try and find solutions for things. So that would be my advice, just to maybe think a little bit more about things and set yourself a little challenge to think outside the box a bit. And it really does start to kick in then.
Yeah.
Never stop.
Sure. You'll never stop. You'll be on this train forever. The Makes You Think challenge is a lovely little challenge that everyone can get involved in. I'll link your Instagram and everything in the show notes so people can go check that out, and you're on Facebook and everything as well. And hopefully your shop will be open soon. Have you any idea of when you'll be able to make things again?
Yeah, well, hopefully in the next few weeks. Yeah. So fingers crossed, we'll be back up and running soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't wait to get back to doing workshops and stuff, and I don't know when that will be, but anyway.
But hopefully, at least, maybe, I don't know, there might be online workshops or something. It's a
Absolutely, yeah.
new future we're moving
New
into. Thank you so much, Lynn. I really appreciate you talking to me.
No, thank you.
Okay, that was Lynn. I hope you guys took something from that interview. I certainly was inspired in a lot of ways, so hopefully you are too. And one thing I completely forgot to mention and ask Lynn about are her seal wetsuit mammies. This is something that actually RTE picked up on in the last couple of days as well. Basically, Lynn has started with Seal Rescue Ireland sewing these kind of fake seal mothers. They're basically, looks like a mermaid's tail kind of with a wetsuit, because we all know what a mermaid's tail looks like, made with a wetsuit, and it basically comforts baby seals while they're being cared for in Seal Rescue Ireland. It's just something for them to snuggle up to, like a comfort blanket. And that's another thing Lynn has been doing with Seal Rescue Ireland recently, and I completely forgot to ask her about it. I got distracted by the birds, so I just wanted to let you guys know about that. And the birds, of course, have since flown the nest, but if you check out the Upcycle Movement on Instagram, Lynn does have a highlight there where you can watch all the videos of the baby birds and then when they flew the nest as well. Oh, it was amazing. It's amazing to watch. And I've also she sent the link to the bird box that she has. If anyone wants to get a bird box, you can do that. So I'll link that in the show notes on Book of Leaves podcast.com if you want to check that out. And I saw a post recently, Jiminy actually, I saw this on, they've recently started selling make your own birdhouse kits, and there's no bad time to put up a birdhouse because apparently they actually start house hunting for spring around this time of year. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll wait till next year and then I'll put up a birdhouse, you can actually stick them up now, because apparently birds like to be planned with these things and look for them in advance, which is pretty cool. I didn't know that. Now, I've also linked a few blog posts that Lynn shared with me about more kind of in-depth differences between upcycling and recycling. And if you were inspired by this chat from Lynn and you're thinking, I would love to know how to upcycle wetsuits, or if you've got maybe access to a load of wetsuits and don't know what to do with them, or you know a way that you can help Lynn spread her skills, then maybe get in touch with her and something might happen. You never know. Of course, I don't want her to be inundated with messages being like, teach me your ways. But if it's something that you're interested in, Lynn is such a helpful person, and I'm sure she'll get back to you with words of wisdom, and possibly there will be workshops in future, which I cannot wait. Then the last thing I want to say about this interview is I want to remind you all of the impact one tiny thing can have, because a huge inspiration for Lynn, as she said, was her brother gifting her that bag that was made from a tsunami relief tent, and that basically put a little seed in her brain, which is now grown into this beautiful huge movement, and it's fabulous. So if you're buying a gift for someone and you buy them something that's been upcycled, you buy them something with a story, you never know the impact that could have. Like, you could be buying a little coin purse that's upcycled from a wetsuit for the next Lynn, you know, for someone who will then see that and then be inspired to start a whole new journey. And everyone who sees that goes, oh, what's that? What's that made from? Oh, it's a relief tent, or this used to be a wetsuit, or these used to be tires. It gets people's interest, and people, it just spreads like wildfire, good wildfire. And I want to remind you all of the possibilities of that. They're endless. So it's really, really inspiring to hear these kind of stories, I think anyway. I hope you guys think the same. And just never doubt the impact that you can have, because people might think, I'm just one person, and this is just one bamboo toothbrush. You never know who's going to see that toothbrush. If you're having a few friends over to your house and you have a bamboo toothbrush there and they're like, oh, that's a good idea, I'll do that. You never know. So just keep doing what you're doing, and the impact that you have is, you can't always see it, but it is there. Like those women who made those bags, they don't know who Lynn is. They don't know, they possibly don't know what she's gone on to do, but they had that effect. And that's amazing. So don't forget that. I love it. Oh, that's what I love. So I hope you guys love that as well. I hope you're all doing well on this plastic free July journey as well. And if you've any questions or tips or suggestions, requests, please do get in touch. I'm on Instagram, Book of Leaves Podcast, Twitter, Book of Leaves Pod, and Facebook, Book of Leaves Podcast, and of course the website as well, and you can email me there too. And that, I think, is it. Please don't forget to share this episode, recommend it to a friend, support it on Buy Me a Coffee if you can, or on Patreon, and go give Lynn a follow. Check out her website. Her shop is open, by the way. Oh my god, nearly forgot to say that. Her shop is back open. She's back up and running, thankfully, so you can order from her online now. And yeah, go forth. Mind your wetsuits as well, of course. I don't have a wetsuit, but I think I might get one in future. And there's eco-friendly ones that you can buy too. There's a lot of eco-friendly wetsuit companies out there, because people who usually deal in wetsuits care about the ocean and they don't want ocean plastic everywhere and this kind of thing. Keep an eye out when you're buying a wetsuit. Look for eco-friendly companies, because there's a few. I just had a quick Google there and there loads came up. And of course, keep an eye out on your local charity shops, because some people donate them as well. But mind the ones that you do get. That is it. I hope you guys are having a lovely July, and stay safe. Wear your mask. Get in touch. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and I will see you soon. Bye.